Can you see the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I always wonder what it looks like from the other side. I haven't actually been on a Riverside attendee before. I've always been the host.
We can have you the other way around. I've got a studio set up. We normally use it just for chatting with our founders.
Yeah.
A big thing that we find is that they haven't got any experience at all in delivering sort of, one-on-one content. So I sometimes just do it with them anyway to get them in the mindset.
Yeah, perfect. No, I appreciate it. Well, look, Jamie, it's so good for you to join us today. Thanks for sharing us the insights that you're going to share about hopefully fundraising, perhaps a bit of your journey on what kind of got you here today. I'm sure there's a moment about what spurred you on. Really want to try and see if there's certain nuggets, tips, tricks, or kind of things that works to help our founders hopefully close their round quicker or be successful and close their round fully. So that'll be probably the ultimate walk away from today if we can do that. Really appreciate that. And thanks for coming on. Jamie, tell us a bit about what got you to where you are today, like before inverse funding.
Sure. So, thanks for letting me on. It's not something I normally love to do. So when you reached out to me and we had a chat, although, as you say, we've known each other for over 3 years now, working on similar projects during the pandemic, and we definitely caught each other's eye. It's not about me, and I never really sort of tell my own stories, etc., apart from, I guess, on my LinkedIn when it's relevant. But got great respect for you, so appreciate you getting me on, and let's get stuck in. So I'm from Newcastle, which, for people in the UK will know that's pretty up north. If you're not from the UK, it's not a main city. It's a big city, but it feels pretty small up there. I was from a small restaurant family, so we had a restaurant growing up, and to me at the time, I felt like we were Jeff Bezos and co. Because perhaps my friends at school necessarily didn't have a restaurant, so it's very different. So I was in a strong entrepreneurial family. I realized quite quickly I didn't love school. I didn't really love the way that they were trying to teach me, to be honest. It felt very stick methodology, whereas I'm a little bit more of a compassionate person, so it just didn't resonate with me. And ultimately I'd seen business, so to try and say, it's 18, you're now going to go to university and live in a house and drink for 3 years and come out with a bit of paper. It wasn't for me. So I left school early, sort of 16 years old. Not my choice, but also kind of not my choice. And I went into the family business. So I was just working in the restaurant as a dishwasher, and then I managed to get on the floor. And then all of a sudden, I realized that, there's a whole other side of business here, social media, that I could do, and I don't have to get my hands dirty, I don't have to be washing dishes at midnight on a Saturday. So I started to learn that there was sort of roles within businesses. From there, I then launched my own healthy fast food store in 2012. We scaled that to multiple sites and went to sort of a partnership acquisition with a PLC. In 2015, I started an incredibly popular automotive styling business, and I don't give myself enough credit on how good it was operationally. We were an official supplier to Rolls-Royce, so we were taking their cars off the factory line, breaking them down, so taking the bonnets off, bumpers, wheels, doors, windows, badges, everything off, repainting them, recoloring them, and putting them back together. And we got VC funding for that business. And something I never thought I'd say on a podcast or a video interview is that business died within 3 months of VC funding. And it kind of leaves you standing there thinking, how did that happen? Because we were profitable. I had 50,000 followers on Instagram. We had Floyd Mayweather as a client and, all of this sort of amazing stuff. But you end up losing your business. And when I looked back at it, retrospectively, which took me about a year, I guess, to do, get the confidence to sort of understand. It was very obvious. I just made the worst deal in history. I did a tranched fundraising deal and, so many errors I know now that you shouldn't be doing. And when I looked around at who was in my corner and looked at my legal team and said, why did we sign this deal? Well, they were given to me by the VC. You know, my FD was also provided to me by the VC. So my support network that I thought I had wasn't my support network in reality. So that led me to go into working with businesses and saying, hey, I'll come on your side and I know what's going on here. And I'll just tell you if it's weird or not weird. And that was a really easy way for me to start. I then realized that I was a lot more talented than that. And people realized that I was a lot more talented than that. I started crowdfunding campaigns for people because, you know, I noticed entrepreneurs didn't have the time to run their own campaigns. By 2020, I'd been doing this from 2018. By 2020, during the pandemic, I personally wrote and managed 13% of all successful crowdfunding raises in Europe. And that was on the Crowdcube and Seedrs platforms. That was 68 in a calendar year. I believe it's a record, but who knows? And then I realized that, okay, well, crowdfunding is great for the last 20%. So what do we do about that first 80%? And I've spent the last 3 years dedicated to raising that first 80% with people, businesses pre-seed all the way through to Premier League footballers, A-list celebrities, and everything in between. So it's been quite the journey. But ultimately, if I hadn't been through it and made the mistakes, then I wouldn't know what I know today. And I couldn't be building the products and the relationships and the be in the position that I am. So that gives you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of why I'm here.
Mate, thank you so much for sharing that, Jamie. And look, I appreciate the openness and kind of authenticity around sharing that story, right? And very similar to myself and my previous business, right? Took an awful deal, and at the time you think, you know, they're on your side, they're here to help you scale, and you think your support team is a support team, but actually when you do a little bit digging, you're like, oh, actually these are on the investor side. They're not. They don't have my personal best interests at heart. So I really connect with you on that one, and perhaps we should tee up another conversation where we can compare notes.
Yeah, for sure.
But look, I wanted to kind of let's get into the I was going to say meat and two veg kind of vibe, but let's go into the valuable bit, Jamie. Let's say a lot of the audience today probably through their rounds started. Maybe it's not as easy as they first thought. What are the things that founders should be thinking about ahead of raising? Because I know that fundraising has a strong PR piece. Like I find that a lot more founders are congratulated and pushed towards raising finance. But do you feel that decision is a wise one? Is there certain conversations or thoughts you should be having before even thinking about raising money?
I think we need to go back a step and ultimately, you know, address that first thing you've spoke about, which is why. Why is it that business owners get to a certain point in their business, open the book, and it says, go and raise money. And don't just raise money, go and beg for money off your friends and family, beg to investors online, in air quotes, investors online, beg to venture capitalist firms, chase people. You know, why do we do that? And I believe that the reality is that entrepreneurs generally don't know how to scale revenue in their business. So it's their only genuine option. So I would love to say that the first step or the thing that you need to be thinking about before you raise funding is there a business model in this business that I'm working on currently that can survive without fundraising? Is there a way that I can, you know, get this to where I want it to be personally without going down that route? And if the answer, you know, overwhelmingly is no, then that's the first step. And a little analogy on that, I spoke to a guy the other day who's 24 years old. He was bright, enthusiastic, finished university, got the world at his feet. And he's taken about 150K in investment for like a recruitment platform. And it sounds really exciting. And I said to him, all right, well, what are you doing? You know, what are you actually doing? And he's like, well, you know, I'm going to get 3,000 hoodies made and I'm going to go to the Freshers Fair and I'm going to start promoting it there. And I was like, you know, the instant thought that came into my head is, why did you need to take 150K to go and buy 3,000 hoodies? You know, it doesn't make sense. So for me, the first step and the biggest preparation piece you can do is go through the process with the mindset that fundraising is the very last option that you've got. And if it comes out at that you need to do that, then go for it. But I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I think you're right for me, like I obviously come at this through my own experiences, my own kind of frame. So when I approached business, I didn't actually know that much about fundraising, didn't know the process, didn't even really think about it. And I thought the best thing that I could do was build a business that was profitable, because I needed to make money. So I wasn't even thinking about raising money. In fact, prior to that, the only reason I started a business was because someone said, I'll buy that from you. Like when I started Liquid Proof, I created a protector spray that I wanted to use that I couldn't find in the world. It was none of the rest of the market was rubbish and just hadn't changed in a while. And I thought, I can do better. And then enough people said, well, can I have some? And I was like, well, okay, let's do that. And that then took a whole mindset shift in, well, what does that actually mean? How do I do that? Read a lot of books, surrounded myself with people that taught me about owning a business kind of type, and I bootstrapped it. So that was my process of applying things. And I also now see that if you can effectively bootstrap a business, you've got customers, you've actually taken money off of someone that you don't know for the goods or services that you're providing, yep, and it makes sense, great. An investor should really only amplify that growth. So you've got a customer acquisition cost roughly, you've got your profit margin on the back end, and if you want to accelerate that growth, you just need further upfront cash at the beginning to acquire those customers that you know will then eventually pay back that money. That's how I've seen it.
Yeah,
because Dragon's Den as well, mate. I watched when I was a kid. Dragon's Den was kind of the only real show.
Yeah,
didn't have a lot, family and friends. There wasn't like VC backed people in my community or around there. It was all like restaurants or tradesmen and tradeswomen and all that sort of vibe, right? So no one goes and raise money from funds. About really, and Silicon Valley wasn't really a thing back then. Dragon's Den was shown on TV, and every single one of those entrepreneurs had prior experience of trying to transact. They had customers potentially, maybe whether they were any good at it or not was a different thing. So I only saw what I saw on Dragon's Den.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You see, for me, my experience was that my mum in the early 90s got a £2,000 bank loan. With my mum and her family, she'll not listen to this, I can say it. They're very, very poor. My grandfather was a postman for the train, and my grandma worked as a secretary in CNN stores in Newcastle. So from a very poor family, and my mum took a £2,000 bank loan and opened a sandwich shop, and we'd go and sit in this sandwich shop after school. And if we didn't sell any sandwiches, then, we didn't have any money. So business to me was always very much like you say. And I do think that's missing. A lot of the time I talk to people, there doesn't seem to be this urgency to live and, generate revenue so you can, buy stuff. My businesses have always been, how quickly can I get to revenue? Because, I remembered when you said your shoe story, this is where we first connected, because I'm from Newcastle, and arguably the best thing that's ever come out of Newcastle is End clothing. And I believe your product was in End, and that's why I was like, wow, well, you must be good then.
That's true. I remember actually doing like a staff training session in End. I love End clothing. It's such a great store. And you're right. I think in the market, I see a lot of businesses, startups trying to start something, create, and the first thing they think of is like, how much money can we raise? Can we go out and raise money to prove a concept? And that in itself is unsustainable. I think the first thing people should think about is actually, is there enough people out there that will buy this solution? And can I even take a deposit from them? Is there a way of transacting an ugly version of what I want to build ahead of going out raising external money, or even from friends and family? Like you say, I'll go out and beg, and I promise you that this will work, potentially, maybe. And it's difficult. You're going to come from a place of like you're already on the back foot. So how are you supposed to, like, I guess you're just setting yourself up for a much harder conversation with investors if you don't have traction, if you don't have the metrics, because you're trying to sell a dream and a wish
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And again, going back to the original question, what do you want entrepreneurs to do? What do you want them to do first before plan the fundraising round? So the answer, first of all, is like, is it actually needed? Like, do you actually need to raise funding? Entrepreneurs, I tell you this from my own experience. You'll have a unicorn idea tomorrow. You'll have a unicorn idea on Monday. You'll have one next Thursday. You'll have one when you're at the gym on Sunday. You'll have one when you're walking the dog on the following Tuesday. If you're this type of person and you're trying to do this entrepreneurial journey and start a business, the business that you have now, or the business idea that you have now, won't be the best idea you ever have. It won't be the last idea you ever have. So don't feel so pressured and, this has to be it. And also that comes a lot into what I'm going to talk about later, which is that urgency when pitching. If you can basically if you have to go to your friends and family and beg for this idea and get it off the ground and, make a deal with someone where you're getting 10K or whatever, ultimately that person's going to give you 10K regardless of what you've come to them pitching, because no one really cares about your business idea and whether they think it's good. This is a personal commitment. You're asking for money and they're lending it to you personally. So, as well, don't overexpose yourself so early on. I feel that entrepreneurs in their first business put so much on their back and they burn so many bridges and rinsed bank of dad or uncle or neighbor who we knew who sold a startup. They do all that stuff so early on that when you do come into your prime, which in my opinion is mid to late 30s, you've fully tapped out all of your networks. So I'm a big believer in what we spoke about before the call, which is the way that you're trying to do things with these accelerators, where you sort of get this guided slow, not slow because it's an accelerator, but a guided passage, and ultimately kind of keeps I take the kids bowling. I've got 2 kids. I take them bowling. I can play beautifully and the little side rails pop down, and for them the side rails pop up. That means they get to play a full game. They don't break themselves or a bowling alley. They get a score on the board, and I think processes that you're building that can put those safety rails up and maybe stop people going out to their network and really sort of overexposing themselves are definitely critical.
I agree. And I think that kind of guide rail analogy works so well, similar to when you're first learning to ride a bike. You have those stabilizers on until you're comfortable enough to take it on your own. If you didn't have that, it could be very painful. You're likely going to fall off way more times than if you didn't have your stabilizers on. So I think that's fantastic. So let's suggest founders have that sort of traction, or they're very much in it now. They've gone down that, they're in it. They have to raise, not have to raise, because I guess they could, wind it up or whatever. But let's say they've made the decision.
Let's say that they've made the decision and it's like, right, I'm going to raise capital. And look, welcome, because you're not the only one. And I think, giving this person a pep talk, I'm going to say, first of all, it's long, it's slow, slower than you'll ever imagine. If you think it's going to take 3 months, imagine it's going to take 9 months and then maybe even double it. So short-term liquidity crises won't be solved by this. So if that's what you're doing it for, forget about it and explore other avenues. But that's the first thing, slow. Second thing is push it away. Let's push the business away from you ever so slightly and try and step back in your own self. And this is something that I have an unfair advantage because I'm helicoptered into this. I met yesterday this Hoover business, 5 million revenue, ready to be the next Dyson. And I get airlifted in. I get the beautiful perspective of seeing it for the first time in its mature state. So I can be very objective about this business and what I like, what I don't like. So what I always want entrepreneurs to do is, at the point you want to raise funding, push the business away from you ever so slightly and start to see if you can look at it subjectively and ask yourself questions like, what have I actually built, that's valuable? If you want to raise 200K fundraising, that means your business is at least on valuation going to be worth about 500K to £1,000,000. Okay, so we've got to push your thing back and imagine it's now a Bugatti Veyron, okay, and you're now going to someone on LinkedIn and saying, hey, do you want to buy 20% of my Bugatti Veyron? Is it actually worth that? Is it worth anything, and understand it from the investor's perspective? Little things like, have you got all of your company systems set up? Have you automated the stuff that can be automated? Have you got your sales handbook? Have you got your script? Do you know where you get your customers from? Have you got your pipeline? Have you got your CRM? It doesn't matter if there's nothing in it. This is the seats. This is the dashboard. This is the little bonnet flap that opens when you hit 200 miles an hour. Like, have you built that stuff? And can you explain it and describe it? And from the first time ever looking at your business, can you see it? And if the answer to that is, well, no, it's not obvious, or no, I haven't done that stuff, then that's what you need to really focus on first, in my opinion, is just, making sure that you've actually got something valuable. Does that resonate at all? Is that something you've ever thought about?
Yeah, I think that's great, Jamie. I think taking that 40,000 foot view of what you think you've built and trying to detach it and really put yourself in your investor's shoes, just as it's important to put yourself in your customer's shoes and understand, is what I'm selling valuable to them? In the same thing, put yourself in your investor's shoes. Is what I'm trying to offer to them valuable to them? Is this investor even the right person that could, is this even worth it to themselves? It might be valuable to someone, but I'm now, that would give me a chance to take a breather, as you say, go through those elements and say, actually, this is something of value. I can prove it because of X, Y, Z. I do have CRM. I do have a number of waitlist customers. I think it's valuable. A lot of people have said it. So yeah, I think you're right. Let's take that step out. And what is valuable between like a founder doing that and someone like yourself, or an advisor or a mentor, right? Would you advise a founder to always seek an external partner to give them that sort of oversight, or is there a certain level is there a stage level? Like for you, do it first and then speak to someone else to validate what you're thinking.
Yeah. So, the type of upbringing and background that I've had, it's, you do it yourself, and you always do it yourself first. And if you want a logo, go online and learn how to make a logo and then make your logo. And if you can't, then that's that. So there's that part of me, from where I'm being brought up and how I was brought up, that says, do it yourself. And however, there's obvious stuff. And in my particular case, and why, I'm so valuable now to startups, is because, I've not just done one of these. Normally entrepreneurs have got a case study of one. They've only got their own business and maybe a mate. I've worked on over 150 successful fundraising campaigns. So let's be really, really, really crude and say that out of those 150 fundraising campaigns, there was 6 different business models, subscription, blah, blah, blah. Like, I've worked on all of those, and I can see what worked and what didn't work, what resonated and didn't resonate. So yes, me doing a helicopter view, I'll see similarities, etc., that you wouldn't be able to see. And that's just the reality. But there's nothing stopping an entrepreneur. And I, last Christmas, not this one, just gone, the one previous, we'd been working in Inverse for a year, and I really wanted to see if the business was saleable. Can I sell this business? So I went through the full process of selling the business. And what it came down to in the end was that, yes, people would buy the business. What we have built is valuable, but I haven't really captured at all what actually makes us valuable, and they're not seeing that. So, go back to the drawing board and work on that again. So yeah, my answer to that really simply is that you should be able to step back from your own business at any time and have an objective look and say, is there value here? Apart from future revenue, what I've got today, if someone wanted to do this themselves, have I at least saved them 20 grand in effort and branding and community building. And if you have, then your business is worth, 20 grand worth of someone else's money. So I always ask myself those questions. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've taken a step back, had a look at things, validated my thinking. I think I've got something of value. I'm serving the market. I'm solving a pain point, a big enough pain point. Then what?
So, yes, you've made it here. Great. Step 3. Now, this comes down to, in my opinion, curb appeal and presentation. And that comes from a lot of different places. Weirdly, the first thing I ever do when anybody emails me or even LinkedIn me, I just instantly check their website. So if you email me, anybody who emails me, I'm going to copy and paste your email and put it into my Google Chrome browser. And whatever comes up, that's what I'm going to initially judge you on. If the website or wherever it takes me is slick and looks good, I'm instantly interested because you've got a good curb appeal and, you've got an attractive shop window. If I do that, and, it takes me some dead landing page 404 error, you're just not getting a reply. And that's going to be sort of standardized across, the people they're trying to get them to take seriously because this is basic stuff. So everyone gets caught up on pitch deck. Everyone gets caught up on finance model, but they never, I meet people who've spent 8 grand on a pitch deck or 4 grand on a pitch deck or whatever, but haven't spent 600 quid on their website, and, made it good. And because, I worked on this canned drinks business once, and I'm sitting with this drinks expert, like from Diageo, all of the top, he was the top guy in the industry. And I loved this brand. And we finished the call and I'm like, why don't you like it? Like, what's wrong with you? And he goes, really simple. Don't care about the pitch. Don't care about problem solution, nothing. I can instantly just imagine this drink on the shelf in a busy Tesco in this place. I'm not picking it up. And if I'm not picking it up, no one else is. The end. So first thing I always want people to do, before you even reach out to a fundraising advisor, is what is my digital footprint as a business? If I say to someone, hey, please, I need money, I want to get investment, I want you to invest, what are they going to find when they look for you online in that 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 30 seconds? So step 1, look at your digital footprint. That's everything from LinkedIn, Twitter. If I go on your website and I scroll at the bottom and you've got an Instagram link and I click on it and it's a dead link or links to a WordPress theme store, it's just not good enough. The level is so high and I don't think people appreciate how high that level is. So step 1, footprint. What do you think?
So true. We are living in an Instagram, TikTok world, right? Everyone's beautiful. Everyone wants to be beautiful. Everyone has a kind of like a minimum standard of quality.
Yeah.
We were, privileged. Probably majority of us have iPhones or whatever, right? And they were just really, really nicely made. That is the minimum. And now the barrier to entry for startups to create a beautiful website on Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, whatever, is like one day. You could whip up something incredible in a day. In fact, one of the lessons that I run through in the program is how to ethically steal £100 million revenue e-com store because they've left you the template. They basically the website designers created a template. It's there. This business is like a subscription multivitamin drink, and their template for their store is available for you to copy. Yes, of course, you change it to your own brand, you change it to your own photo shot. I'm not saying copy exactly what they're doing because that's infringement, but you could almost replicate what they have, the look and feel of the website within a day. So your excuses are gone. You don't have an excuse to create something beautiful. You could go online, AI could probably whip you up a site in a fraction of a second, or you pay a freelancer a few £100 and you'll have something incredible. The visual appeal is something now. We, as you say, if that's like the minimum, if you can't do that, how do you expect to wake up every day, get customers to be excited enough to hand over cash? If you don't have that beautiful site.
It's 100% true. And again, that's why it's my step number one, because, you know, before you go and speak to anybody about your business, can you cover that basic benchmark of, you know, do I have that curb appeal that someone who opens this app? Don't forget, we always use our own network. So if you send me a fashion product or you know, like I use the Hoover example, I sent the Hoover to my mum, you know, because I've known my mum's bought Hoovers in her lifetime. So I sent it to her. And she's like, oh, I've seen that advertised, cool product. And it's like, okay, you know, step one done. Digital footprint looks good. You don't need to, you know, again, spend hundreds of thousands. I saw a LinkedIn post yesterday. A guy goes, oh, I spent 200K on a website last year. And I literally, you know, my actual response I wanted to write, even though I have to be this, like, you know, nice guy, etc., was, well, if I was your investor, I'd be suing you for wasting my money on a website. And if they didn't even notice, they're deluded, and I'd be urging their investors to really look at this business and understand what the hell's going on. But hey, it might have just been a lie on LinkedIn. Who would be surprised? But yeah, you know, step one, make it look good. Let's get to the next hypothetical stage. So you've got the perspective, you've had a look, you think it's valuable, you've done your basics, in our opinion, which is, you know, a well-branded company domain, a good founder's profile. Don't underestimate your founder profile, because if you haven't even got the confidence to write a LinkedIn post once a week, again, I just not believing you as an investor that you've got the minerals. Basically, it's a weird world we live in, but as you said, if you haven't got 10K followers on Instagram nowadays, like, you're nothing. You're nothing in the social status world. So it's very interesting. The next thing is to clean up a little bit. So, and by clean up, I don't mean get rid of or, you know, fix all your problems, but clean up in a sense that there's normally debt or employees or ad hoc things in the business. You know, next thing you need to do is just go through your housekeeping generally, make sure that company's house is up to date. You would be surprised at how many businesses reach out to us for funding and have got strike off notices on their company's house. And it's like, why would anybody put money into you? Oh, we didn't realize. Yeah, of course you didn't realize. And that's why you're not going to raise any money, because, you know, we're looking for people who do realize that they've got to file accounts on company's house and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, second thing is a bit of just basic housekeeping, you know, and just make sure that you're doing things correctly. When getting investment, you're not getting a grant or a loan. You know, someone is buying 20% of your business generally, and that means that they're now your partner and they want things done properly to their standard, which is going to be a lot higher than yours. So just, you know, mock getting ready for that. Third step, 100% now becomes about presentation. So I don't recommend that you now spend 6 months building a pitch deck and, you know, work it. I'm the worst pitch deck designer in the world, because at the end of the day, I believe that all founders should make their own pitch decks. And again, if you can't, we really have to wonder why. You know, I would say that presentation making is one of the most fundamental attributes that a founder should have. If you look at what being a successful entrepreneur is, it's having a vision and taking people with you on that journey. And a big part of that is presenting, and, you know, and if you can't get that right from an early stage, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah. And look, there's creative support out there in terms of Canva. You can get Canva Pro, you can download a presentation slides, and then you put the content in. Don't expect anyone else to do the founder work for you, but you can make it look presentable, make it look nice by using Canva, something like that, or even put it all together. And then again, I'm sure you probably know someone that's creative enough to make it look presentable, right? But it's again, the barrier to entry on that level is super low. You are able to create a beautiful presentation, and oftentimes you could go on. I'm sure, like, I think Heights have shared their pitch deck that they successfully raised. I think it was on Seedrs or Crowdcube.
Yeah, I've built a pitch deck template, and literally just replace the words with your own, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But
How polished
again,
does it have to be? Like, how polished
how good
does it
does it
have to
have
be?
to be? I think there's two elements to a pitch deck. Well, let's say three. The first one again is that curb appeal. When I open a pitch deck document, the first page should give me the feeling I'm looking at something of high quality, high quality intelligence, high quality, feel, everything. It has to be high quality. And again, that can come with a good, well chosen stock image and a nice clean logo. That's what high quality is. It doesn't have to be over the top. The second thing is, does it really capture who you are? A lot of investment, they say 50% of all investment decision is who the hell is the entrepreneur and how capable are they? I spoke to a guy yesterday, and liked the idea generally. It was something I'd thought of myself when I was like 18. A bit of a retake on an industry. But ultimately, you put me against them in the same business with the same resource, I'd run laps around them. And ultimately, that makes them uninvestable because, if I can run laps around, there'll be 100 other entrepreneurs who can. So, who are you? Does that come across well? Have you demonstrated in this document that you know what you're doing? You know your business, you know what you're doing, you're comfortable in who you are. And then the third element is, of course, can you explain your business model and people, understand it? So, the bar is incredibly high. Incredibly high. If you knew who was out fundraising at the minute, you probably wouldn't bother. But you've got the biggest people in the world are fundraising. Sam Altman, Open AI, they're all fundraising at the minute. We're all fishing in the same pools, and these people are just miles and miles ahead.
Jamie, what? Sorry, a dog's just shaking in the background, but I'll edit that.
I've got 2 dogs myself.
What was I going to say? So the bar's high, like make it look good, fantastic. Now, what are the core elements of like the presentation? If you could solidify, in fact, actually, we don't need to cover that because that's like pretty much out there already. If you don't have an understanding of that, I'm sure we can do that. But
Yeah.
but like, what are investors really looking for?
Yeah, what are we looking for? I mean, this is what boils my blood so much, and this is why sort of, it's now consumed my whole life, because unfortunately, investing is a gut feeling. And even when you go down to Y Combinator and you go through this incredible feeling, it will all come down to one human's gut feeling, whether this is the right or wrong thing to do. So ultimately, when you speak to investors, they say they read the pitch deck as one thing. And then if they want to have a chat, they're normally seeing if you're talking about the same thing. And 90% of the time, you're not talking about the same thing. So it gets disregarded, which is really interesting. But generally, like I say, when I'm designing a pitch deck, I want it to take me through a certain flow, which is, first of all, an introduction to the business and the brand. What are you and how would you look if you were on a supermarket shelf, and why would I pick you up? That's the very first thing that I want to see. The second is that sort of mission, problem, solution section of a document where you're telling me about, why you're doing this, why other people are going to believe you, and how you fix it. From after there, it's just, trying to get people excited. And that's the key feeling. If somebody is excited, they make irrational decisions, and that's kind of what we need, because fundraising's never rational. And I'll give you an example. I want to buy a car. I see the new Range Rover advert on TV, and it splashes through this puddle, and I'm like, wow, that looks gorgeous. I'm totally hooked by it. That's irrational. I'm feeling whatever this is, I want it. I go to the garage. They then get out the finance agreement, they get out the miles per gallon, and they get out all of the document stuff. And the irrational love that I had for the car has got to just take me through that negative period, that even after all of that, I'm still buoyant in terms of my want. So if you don't set the excitement level high enough, when you go through all that boring stuff, you'll just pass that line of no, basically. So, you have to be excited, otherwise the deal will never get done. So, the key things we're looking for is, again, if I look on a supermarket shelf or the Slack store or the on buy marketplace, am I going to pick up your product and interact with it? If the answer to that's no, my decision is always going to be a no. Second, do you convey who you are, why you're capable, if there's a market fit for it? And the final one, like I say, is, is it exciting enough for me or anyone to take their time on? And that's what we want to get out of a good pitch deck.
Amazing. Okay. I've done that. Got it all in there. Mate, I've got that. I've got the presentation together. I am now in a space. I'm feeling confident with myself. I've shown it to a few people, got okay feedback, right? What is then the next stage of the fundraising process?
Sure. First thing to note is that pitch deck is never done. So the biggest mistake I see is that entrepreneurs have one pitch deck for 3 months or 4 months worth of fundraising. And in reality is, since we last spoke 3 years ago, there's been global lockdowns, there's been a Russian invasion of Ukraine, there's been increased gas prices, there's now kind of been this whole reconvergence on like oil's not actually the bad guy anymore, and it's actually BlackRock, and there's everything changes every day of the week, and we've had the banking crisis, and we've had so much going on, high inflation now, and cost of living, the old cosy lives crisis. There's a crisis every day, so it's impossible to fix a narrative for 3 months. So just forget that. That's impossible. You can't do it. 3 months is too long. So first thing is, don't ever say that deck's done. You need one for private angels, you need one for family and friends, you need one for VCs, and they should all be slightly different with a slightly different story. So just how you sell your product, you've got multiple products, multiple narratives, multiple hooks. You're selling equity is your product. So that's, before we move on from there, that's that. Everything's ready. What do you do next, basically? And the first thing is to decide where you're going to get your money from. So ultimately, you need to look at the fundraising market and decide where's your easy win going to come from. Most businesses have what's called FFF investors, which is friends, family, or fools. And the median friend, family, fool investment in the UK is 27K. So basically, that's kind of what they say that founders can get. I personally took that money, and I've regretted it ever since. I strained the relationship with my dad. I didn't need to do that. I really didn't need to do that, and again, be careful with FFF, be really careful, because this is, relationships worth more than any business, and money changes people instantly. So just be careful with that. So ultimately, you're going to split into 3 sections: angel investors, VCs or institutions, and friends, family, and fools. Each of those needs some form of funnel. So I know you're a smart businessman. You know how to build funnels. You know how to take people through journeys, etc., etc. So the first thing we want to do is build some form of list, and I'll finish the process and I'll tell you the hack. Build a list. So who am I actually going to reach out to? You don't need to make these lists too big. Ultimately, silence is the greatest feedback ever. If you're not even exciting enough to get a reply, don't take that as though I've had no feedback. That is the feedback. Everybody sees every email. It's, and we choose what to delete and not what to delete, and clear an archive. So that's the first step. Build a list and start reaching out. Keep it small, keep it focused for now, just because you need to iterate and adapt. If you get feedback, great. If you don't, it doesn't matter, because no feedback is the feedback, as I've already told you. But in reality, fundraising happens after the first pitch. So, the prospecting stage is a bit like you running an Instagram campaign for your business, or running, Amazon products, etc. That's the prospecting stage. That's the stage in which you're sort of doing that top of funnel. Real fundraising work comes in when you've kind of got a nurture list and etc. I mean, anything there before we move on?
No. The only thing that stood out, right, is so I'm creating a list. I can be like super basic spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
kind of details of the email list, and you're saying email first.
Email's great because, there's so many tracking tools you can use for emails. So you can get a good idea of, did this person see my email subject, think it was exciting enough to click on it? Did they read the content? Did they then click on my link that I've provided? We can track those steps fairly comfortably. Again, we're trying in a world where data is the new gold, and we all know that stuff. It's like, how can you get data around this process for your business and your fundraising process? So email's easier. LinkedIn's very random. It's also fully managed. At the end of the day, any good CEO or angel investor manages their own email inbox. They likely don't manage their own LinkedIn. That's it's just a spam, crazy narrative place. So yeah, I definitely prefer email.
Okay. And then if we're talking about email, then that's me thinking about, well, subject line is the thing that's going to get an open.
Correct. And we don't want to trick people into opens either, because then we're giving false data to ourselves. So, I would normally you have to avoid the word sort of investment and so forth, because then Google's just going to block you. So you have to be they don't like phishing scams. And if you send someone an email saying, hey, I'm raising 250,000 of investment for my startup, that is pretty much going to get you in a spam folder quite quickly. So we have to be slightly clever. So maybe we go with SEIS opportunity, or join our growth round. We try and use it, but we don't want to trick people past the email subject. We want someone to see business funding round. Okay, my one-liner with a join our funding round works. We then go into an email. In that email, this is where it starts getting so subjective, because ultimately, if I say to you, okay, today we're going to email Elon Musk, you're going to send one email today, and it's going to be to Elon Musk, and you have to write what you think is going to get you a reply. It won't be any of the shit that you see on LinkedIn. It won't be any of that stuff. It won't be any of the cut and paste templates that you write, because A, you need him to see you're a human. B, you need him to see that you're valuable enough for him to even reply. And, his email's right there. It's erm@spacex.com. It's available online, and I can guarantee you that he'll be in there and active in his own email inbox. That's his lifeline of his business. So what are you actually going to do to get that attention? And I always encourage personality. The stuff that always gets me is when you can really tell it's, from the founder, and it's relevant, and they want to speak to you. And an example of that, my dream is to finish with startups when I'm done with Inverse, which is probably 3 to 5 years. I'll be in my late 30s by then. And I want to transition. I want to be a Formula One CEO. That's what I want to do, because that's my, passion. So that's where I want to end up. I know that I don't have the corporate experience to be a CEO in Formula One. It's laughable to think I could just turn up. So already now, I've already reached out to every single CEO in a Formula One team. I've already told them my ambition, and you'd be stunned at how many replies I got. From me saying, hey, I want to be a Formula One CEO. In the next couple of years, I'm going to be transitioning to corporate to get that experience. What advice can you give me? Is there any experience you can give me now that can help me when I get there? People love it. They see themselves in you if you come across well and personally. So yeah, that's the next thing, is create that email content, but it has to be from you, and if it's not from you, it's not going to get a mention. And you can template that up and speed it up and, automate it. I'm not saying that every single email needs to be automated, but that base of what you're saying has to be authentic.
True. Because if it isn't, you're just going to get, well, firstly, you're probably going to end up in spam anyway. It's never going to get seen. Or you're just going to get that yuck feeling from someone reading it going, this has been sent to 20,000 people, or this person doesn't even know really who I am. Like, there's no personalization, there's no connection. So if I'm not feeling it, why would I even bother responding? So I can completely makes sense. So Jamie, you touched on there like a story. How important is it to, let's say, like, I guess, tickle the ego, like play an ego at the front end of that email, so you know that you've done your homework in who you're emailing? Is that something that
I
you...
mean, going back to the Formula One CEO emails, for example, I never once said, "Oh, I respect you for what you've done," and it is about me because I'm emailing to pitch myself and what I can do and my capability. And in a fundraising context, you are literally emailing someone saying, "Hey, if you give me 100K, I'm going to 4 times that 100K." So, it doesn't necessarily, I don't love that when people say, "Oh, it has to be personal, it has to be me." If you can explain who you are and your story and why it's relevant, or why I would find it relevant, or, again, it's just about authenticity. That's all this comes down to. We had a guy made a video and he got like a lookalike in it, and it was quite funny, and it was all in, it went in the email outreach, and at the end of the day, it just didn't feel very authentic. It did feel like quite manufactured. And again, if I'm working, or if you're emailing me or any investor, if I don't get that spark in the email of, okay, this person is, capable, because that's all it is. It's capability, isn't it? It's just like a job interview. Can you do the job? Yes or no? Why are you capable? Can you describe to me in a set of words and give me that feeling of, okay, this person's capable enough to deliver the plan, and the plan sounds exciting? You get a call. Simple as that.
All right. Yeah. So it's true. Like, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's just a bit of common sense, bit of thought. And again, put yourself in their shoes. If you received the email, and you're not even buying it, then how do you expect someone else that doesn't even know who you are to do the same thing? And is there a way of then, do you stage the outreach? Would you go for, you definitely are segmenting VCs, angels, and the triple Fs separately? You're sending them...
Yeah, so I've got an unfair advantage. My business sends around 19,000 cold investor emails a month now. So I've got an uncanny amount of data to sort of inform this sort of stuff. But yeah, multiple campaigns, multiple copy types, small batches, weekly batches seem to work best. Timing's everything. You're more likely to get a reply on a Saturday at midnight or a Sunday at midnight than you are at a Wednesday 4 p.m. So really, again, think about it from the other side. When am I getting this email? If it's on a Coronation Bank Holiday Monday, I'm not opening it. And if it's not there and then in my inbox, you've got to be in the right place at the right time with a little bit of luck. And we know that. We know that's between 9 and 11, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Don't bother with a Friday. When people are sitting at work at their desk, everyone's got the same thing. We sit down and we make money for our family. That's my purpose. And anyone who's receiving your email is sitting down at their desk to make money for their family. And if you come across them and it sounds exciting, then they're going to open it. So 100% segment it. And again, do it in small batches, really small batches.
And Jamie, you touched on their multiple campaigns. So tell me a bit more about that, because you're never gonna, like, if you just send one email, you're greatly reducing your chances of getting responses or getting follow-ups, right? So tell us a bit more, maybe about the number of emails that you send without bombarding.
Well, we used to, when we first started this, we used to send 5 chasers, because that's what you do in e-coms. I mean, and that's the sort of the standard email marketing funnel, and maybe on the 5th time they'll click it. With investors, 1 chaser is fair, if not slightly unreasonable. I always act on the principle everyone, they're going to see it, and if it isn't enough to make them click on the first bite, then the second bite isn't going to be more appealing. That being said, some of our best investment for clients has come off chasers. So remember 2 things that we've learned from that. The first one is that don't just send a chaser with a little, hey, did you see my last email? Best wishes, Jamie. It has to then re-summarize because they didn't see your last email, so re-summarize, re-put the deck link in, make sure that it's all, a condensed version, really tight. If you see the introductions that I make to people, fundraising introductions, it's one line basically about the business. So Halo Appliances, Hoover Company taking on XYZ, 3 bullet points maybe. These are the 3 bits of traction that I find exciting. And it's normally a revenue or a growth or a market size. Not really a market size because that's nothing to do with you. It may be a GP, it may be, a product margin, etc. And then, a call to action. And that's the key here. And that's the bit that we've not spoken about yet, is that you can do all of this amazing work. You can make an email copy. When I say multiple campaigns, I mean, again, don't just have one pitch deck. Don't just have one email copy. You never know which one's going to work, just like with your product. So, have 2 decks, 2 pitch, one purple, one blue. We when we do decks for clients, I sometimes do outrageous stuff on the first page because 100% of people read that first page, 80% on the second, and maybe only 1% actually finish the deck. So, do something crazy. I built a deck for Jude Law. I built it upside down. So you came into the deck on the first page and it said, sorry, no access. You need to go to the ground floor. And then I had an arrow and it took you to the bottom of the deck. And then when you turned it, you went back. It was mental. But you know what? It stood out and people read the whole deck and thought it was weird enough to have a conversation. So there isn't a right and a wrong way to do it. So you need to have multiple. But the biggest thing is the call to action. What do you want someone to do when they've read this email? What is it? Is it book a Calendly link? Are you ever going to click on a Calendly link yourself and just randomly book in someone's diary? I don't think so. It's quite a big ask for that to, take someone's time at a prospecting stage. So, my suggestion is to sort of point to, as I said, that digital footprint. Take a look. Here I am on LinkedIn. I've wrote a post recently about my business. It'd be great if you can take time to read it and connect with me there. And, this is all about nurturing. And I said before I'd come on to nurturing. But this is all about nurturing. No one's ever just going to reply. Well, sometimes they do, but no one's ever just going to reply and say, oh, great. Yeah. Here, what's your bank account information? I'll send you it. You know that because you've been around for a while, but we had a chat at the beginning that this is people's first time. So it's all about getting them to that point where you've got that first step to nurture a relationship.
And within each campaign, right, are you sticking to the same CTA, call to action? Like, is it no, you're switching it up? Like what's been like maybe the top 2 call to actions that you're seeing?
I want an email chat with people. If I'm seriously raising fundraising for a business, so say for example I'm coming in as a CIO or whatever, I want an email thread. I want a conversation. I want a chat. I don't want to give them this instant no where it's like, oh, great, but not for me, thanks. And that's what a lot of people do with investor outreach. They're like, and I'm searching for a 100K investor. Can that be you? Click this link to book a Calendly. And I go, could have been me, but it's not today. So never mind. Thanks very much. I'll take the easy no. So, what I'm trying to get is into a place where they can ask a couple of questions without feeling like they're going to be spammed for the rest of their life. So the best calls to action are, would love to know some thoughts. What would be your sort of key challenge or takeaway from this? If you had any advice for me, they always say, ask for advice, get money, ask for money, get advice. So, let's ask for advice. We're reaching out to angel investors who are obviously skilled, dynamic, individuals, good at what they do. So they're always willing to share that, and they just look for the right people to do that. And someone who just turns up on your desk and goes bah! And just spams at you think, oh god, I'm not entering a conversation with this person because I'm just going to be blasted for the next week. And it goes on and on. So CTAs, I love stuff that's going to drive an email conversation. What's the biggest conversation point you can start. Deck links, I love putting deck links in. Read the deck, and then you can chase up and say, I saw you read it, did you have any questions, and blah blah blah. Webinars are great. No one wants to be the only person who's stupid enough to invest in your business. So if you can run an email campaign and say, for example, that on next Tuesday at 10 p.m. I'm doing a webinar. If you can't make it, I'm going to follow up and send you the recording, and have a couple of other people in there, even if it's just your product manager, whatever. It's not just you. You can create some form of gravity around your business, and they are great CTAs. Are you a human? Have you got a brain? Can you speak well? These are the questions that fundamentally we need answered. So yeah, be creative with the CTAs. There isn't a right or wrong answer, but we're trying to get a relationship out the end of it.
Okay. So you're testing CTAs. I'm kind of tracking the data. Where are people clicking? How long are they spending time on the deck? What pages are they landing on? Are they responding? Fantastic. Let's start a conversation. So you said it earlier, nurturing, right? So to date, we're thinking about creating a pitch deck. My ultimate goal is trying to raise money. Yeah. But actually, this element to me is like starting to date someone you don't know. You want to start learning about like kind of going on those first few dates before you ask them to marry you, or like it's spend the rest of their life with you. This is an investor that is about to spend a number of years in your business with you. What are the next steps after you're getting a response from investors?
Let them tell their story and listen and find commonalities. Everyone wants to talk. We all love to talk. That's why podcasting is the biggest thing in the world, because everyone wants a chance to say what they want to say. So the first thing about a relationship is being the ear and the mouth equally. And I see this a lot of the time with people. They get an investor interested, and then it just like, again, the temperature turns up. They sort of start just being like, and just going too intense at it. Facilitate a conversation, and it sounds so obvious, but it's not. So facilitate a conversation, hear their story, understand what their pain point is, understand why they're investing, understand why they're interested in a prop tech business on a Tuesday afternoon. What is it that's made them interested? Go back, make sure that your narrative reflects that. This is nurturing, it's improving, it's aligning, it's taking a sunbeam and putting it through a magnifying glass and concentrating it for that individual. That's what nurturing is. It isn't a case of, checking in and being like, hey, hope you're cool. Let's chat next Feb. And, if you need a babysitter, I can come. Like, it's not making a friend. Like, I've got friends, it's nurturing is aligning your investment proposal to the specific need, want, desire they have as an investor. So a great one. There's this guy called Alex Powell from the Chainsmokers. He's on LinkedIn at the minute. He's just become like a VC. He's got Mantis VC. He's very, very, very clearly articulating his why, and he's doing that because he wants to have meaningful conversations with people who understand why he's doing it, and then they can align and make a deal, So that's what you need to do when you're nurturing. It's not a case of an investor newsletter. It's not a case of, sending them a MailChimp campaign every 2 weeks, be like, are you interested in investing? Yeah. It's finding out what that individual, what makes them tick. And maybe during the nurture phase, you realize quite quickly that, okay, that common ground that's going to need to be there isn't there, or won't ever be there. And that's fine. And then that you can add that to your no pile. But yeah, the key to nurturing is not facilitating a friendship. It's about aligning. And I think a lot of people make mistakes there.
Jamie, how do you go from that back and forth email conversation or checking in to see if they've seen the deck enough or there's interest there, you ask for their advice, to jumping on a call and initiating that? Oh, what excited you about the prop tech business I'm building? Like, how is it literally just say, let's jump on a call to learn more? Would you wait for them to initiate it?
So, I mean, ultimately, what the idea is that we target well, so we know that this person is capable of making an investment, does make investments, or has made investments. They have to fit some initial criteria, and because of that, we need to be transparent from the offset that we're fundraising. And again, that's why I always want to make sure that the emails aren't tricks. That they're very clear what your objective is, and that is part of a good relationship, that you're sort of open and transparent. I hate it when people message me on LinkedIn and say like, "Oh, it's great to meet. I've read your post. You're amazing," literally. And I sit here and I think, okay, like, well, great. I'm happy you think that way about me. And you're kind of just bracing for it, and then it comes the 4 paragraphs of, "I'm fundraising. We need 200K by the end of June." He's whatever. So the first thing is, like, you've been transparent in your introduction, and you're both on the same page. They've asked a couple of questions, and ultimately now what you need to do is align. So ultimately you can ask if it's available to have a call, and to learn more about them and their aspirations as an investor, or what they've learned so far, and have an opportunity for you to pitch. The other options are being quite blunt in terms of the actual fundraising rounds. So another thing that I always talk about is productizing fundraising rounds. So in that first email, it's very clear that if you do an investor outreach process that says, "Oh, we want 500K closed by June," that's not a bad thing to write in an investor outreach email, but you're kind of alienating the person reading it, because no one's going to give you 500K themselves unless you're a mega business or whatever. So I always productize it. I normally say we're looking to build a strong community of investors in the business, and we're looking for £10,000 tickets. So I always set that's there in the background. And then when we get into the point where they've asked a couple of questions, we can then ask quite openly that what would be interesting for you in participation. So you can get to it, but only you can do that if you've planted the seeds with transparency and blah blah blah. So does that make sense?
It does. And we also got to think about we're all busy here, right? Firstly, it's from a founder perspective, you're trying to run a business and you're in a fundraising round, so you're going to be doubly busy. Equally, you don't want to waste your time with potential investors that aren't ever going to invest or aren't aligned. So you don't have a lot of time to pansy around, like start up friendships without thinking about what's the ultimate outcome. Obviously, you're not going to close your round. Equally, on the other side, these investors are receiving multiple outreaches. They don't want to be wasting their time with businesses that they aren't aligned or aren't going to be able to invest in yet. So we've get to it, be authentic.
We've got a saying where I'm from. It's called "shy Ben's getting out," and it basically means shy children don't get anything. That's the Ben's a child, now is nothing. So you have to be brave enough and transparent enough to ask, and that's what we all come to this. The last page of every deck is an ask. It's that ask. What's your ask? And again, that is a big problem. People kind of either go too big on the ask and it alienates the reader, or it evaporates because they're too sort of scared. And as you say, if anybody's looking for SEIS investments or EIS investments, they want to do deals, but they want to do deals with people who understand that it's a deal, and that is a big thing. They know it's a deal, and they've probably done it before, and it's probably failed, and the business went bust, and they probably, had a negative experience with that founder, and you're the next one on their desk, and, they know what they're doing. Or if they've never done an angel investment before, you're going to be the first, and you're going to they'll look to you as the business owner to say, all right, how's this going to get done? What's the process? We often get quite an often one is that comes back from angel outreach is hey, looks great, interested by what you've said. Biggest question is, are you looking for people around 10K tickets? What's your minimum? Do you want to have a chat? That's quite a common type of response that you'll get from a well-written investor outreach email. And from that kind of sets the basis for you to have a bit more of a chat around the actual fundraising round itself. This is the other problem as well. If you kind of lean too heavy on the story and the narrative, you can have a call and you can spend an hour talking about why your dog apps, going to transform pet owners' lives, and they've got a dog and they love dogs. And you come off the call and you've had a great chat, but you've not spoken about really what's important, which is about, funding for the business, how they can help. So, again, I think this all comes down to that first email content being transparent, and it should lead to a conversation.
Yeah, like zoom out, big overall, big vision. Like, this is the mission we're on. Yeah. Are we aligned? Yes. Okay. This is the really thing that we're working on. This is why we're important, and this is how you can get involved. And this is why I'm speaking to you today, now, and this is my ask. So you zoom out and then bring it in to the ask right at the end. So let's say we're all aligned. That's going positive, and things are driving forward. What happens next, Jamie?
Yeah. So what happens next is you've got the balancing act of, okay, you've got a full round in play here and you've got someone who's interested. So what do? And this is that, this is where you meet everybody in fundraising. Everybody seems to get 25%, 50%, 60%, 80% of their round done. And they're just like, they're always looking for one more investor. Well, I need a lead. I need something to close it. So again, this comes down to expectation and how you manage that. So I personally, as a theory for raising investment, prefer to deal with individuals on an individual basis. If you're trying to group people together and, X, Y, Z, it just becomes infinitely more difficult. So for me personally, my feeling is that you should get to a place where you've obviously got your documents and, just for argument's sake, you use Seed Legal's, their Seed Fast program or whatever it may be to do your funding round. So you've got all your documents, so don't need to waste time talking about that. The best thing to try and do is get that person and get them committed, as quickly as possible. There's a shelf life on everything. As I said, you've got the initial excitement, and that is going to deteriorate over time. It's going to deteriorate with things you've said, things you've done, posts you've not done. Ultimately, there's a lot of stuff. So, I want to try and close every individual as they come, get them on board, try and get them in as an advisor in some way, just get them in, get their money, move on to the next one, and build up that liquidity pool. Another massive issue that we see is that people squander these opportunities because they're chasing this big round, when the reality is that, yes, you need 500K, or, need in air quotes 500K. I believe that about 99% of people that I talk with on a daily basis, if they even got 20K, it would fundamentally change their life and their business. So, just understanding that and dealing with that and thinking, okay, if I take 20K and then I put it to work, is that going to improve my chances of landing the next investor? Of course it is. Of course it will, because you're 20K more mature. You're 20K more seasoned. You've got that investor on your side now. They maybe even be able to help you pitch or introduce you to their network, So I think my biggest advice is, when you get a worm, or you get a fish, don't leave it in that net on the side of the river, just get it in, get it closed, get it on a barbecue, and get on to the next one. Don't just have this pile of interest. That's kind of my advice.
Okay, so start closing iteratively along the journey. Get an investor. Sounds alignment. Great. Okay, 10K in, 20K in. Let's get you on the cap table kind of vibe. Would you then? I often hear people talking about discounts for those people that are coming in sooner. Is that something that you lean towards? Is that something that you tend to pick up based on the appetite of the investor, or do you just say it's 500K, sounds like you're committed for 20K, let's get that going? How do you kind of take that step, or is it different for every investor, every kind of startup?
So intro versus no intro is a fascinating one, because like there is certain circumstances, of course, where an introduction works, but it has to be, the right point, place, in time for it to work. So I personally have personal friends, contacts who, think I'm an expert in startups. That may be because I talk to 31 businesses every week. I, have got data, I know what's good, I know what's bad, and they trust me. So if I reach out to those people and say, hey, this one came across my desk and I truly find it exciting, yes, they're going to put you to the front of the queue, because when I say that, I think it's exciting. Guess what? I know their criteria, and they've already briefed me on what they're looking for, and it fits their criteria, and I've just saved them a lot of time and a lot of effort. So, yes. However, introductions don't work generally. They are so rare. I mean, they're so rare. Maybe once in 3 years or something, I'll make an introduction that gets somewhere or something, because this is so much out of control. So introductions are sort of the death of fundraising rounds. You've got to be in control of your own destiny. You've got to control your own investment pipeline and everything above. So, no, don't get caught up in introductions. In fact, don't even go looking for them, because ultimately I will introduce businesses who've not asked me to introduce them, just because, again, I've seen it. I've made a judgment that, okay, this is something that I know that person's looking for or would be interested in. So yeah, if you have to ask for an introduction to someone, they've already screened you and decided that it's not relevant or whatever. So now I try not to get people too caught up on that, because you can just waste a lot of time.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've got money in, it's coming in, and we just keep repeating the process till we close our round. What often happens next?
I find that you've got this like honeymoon period, I guess, with investment, where you need to make something happen, and the make something happen phase can be maturity, it can be growth, it can be a lot of different things. But ultimately, if you can say to someone publicly, and this is where the whole build in public methodology comes from, I'm here today at point A, and tomorrow or on Friday or next year, I'm going to be at point B. And you do that and you achieve that is really, investable. And that's what people want to back. So I always, when I swap to that side of the fence and sit with founders who are maybe taking cash or raising cash, it's all about where are you now? Where's that line in the sand where you are today? And where's the flag you're putting in tomorrow? And is that unrealistic? Is it too big? Is it too small? What did the investor expect? I would suspect that most fundraising conversations should go like this: prospect, nurture, close, realign. Realign. Hey, this is what we said during the pitching process. This is what got you excited. We've now got the cash in bank, and this is what we want to achieve. Based on the data, that might not be realistic. So what should we do? And having that alignment process is so important. And that's why stuff like accelerators, etc., are good, because they, focus you on that sort of stuff a lot more than you probably would just being a sole founder or entrepreneur. But realignment is critical. It's the biggest mistake that I made. I took the money, didn't realign, came back 3 months later. Basically, everything was on fire. And they were like, oh, we were just under presumption that you'd be here today, and you're now there. And I was like, yeah, we're here. And although they sort of, like the business, etc., because it was so far apart from where they thought they were going to be, it became impossible for them to sort of support me, and I just had to let it die. In reality, if I'd had a meeting on day one, which they wanted to do, to be fair to them, we went for a cafe in town, and I was nervous. I was speaking about how great we were, and instead I should have said, hey, money's in the bank now, deal's done, signed, and there's nothing we can do about that. In reality, the fundraising took 6 months, a little bit behind. I really should be focusing on, my team, getting them moving again, motivated again, instead of bringing new members in, and that realignment. So, for me, step one is, Once you've closed that money, agree with your investors to maybe submit a business model and have a session where you all agree what's the plan. And then your job's just to execute that plan. And if you've already agreed the plan with the investor and they've signed it off and said, okay, I think that's a really fair plan for this quarter, 2 quarters, we'll review it at the end of the quarter. If you've done everything that you can to get there and you've missed for whatever reason, they're going to support you and they're going to back you. And that's what it's all about. It's about building, a shareholding group in the business who understand that it's not always going to be win-win-win. And if you can get that, then it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And I think being confident as well about being true and open enough to say, look, okay, this is where we're struggling with. These are the hurdles, and how can you help me in any way? Can you help me get through this? This is what I'm struggling with. They're there to help you. Oftentimes they probably do have been through this journey before, and they do have some answers. They can connect you with people, but keeping it inside, locked up, trying to pretend that everything's all okay isn't the best step forward. So being open and transparent about asking for help as well is important. Okay, that's really cool. I haven't heard that piece before, that realignment. I think that's a really valuable piece there, Jamie. Is there anything else that perhaps you haven't shared today that you'd love to share with the cohort?
I think ultimately, when it comes to fundraising, we spoke about it at the very beginning, that objective appraisal of what you've actually got is so important. And, it comes to all elements of it, whether it's looking at your business, whether it's understanding what the investors invested in, it's just the biggest missing piece of the puzzle. And I'm, always getting outreach to by founders. And when it comes down to it, and I talk to them face to face and I say, is this good enough? Do you think it's good enough? The answer's always, oh, there's stuff I want to improve, or oh, I could do this better. Or oh, this hasn't captured it, or this is old data, or not new. That's the biggest thing, and I scream from the rooftops on a daily basis about it. You have to be good enough. The bar is so high. It's unbelievable how high the bar is for actual quality. So when you get an excuse or a no or an easy out for fundraising, they're always going to take it. And I learned that in crowdfunding very early on in my fundraising career. If you give someone an easy out, a yes/no decision, people are generally going to take the no. You have to not take that off the table, take the no out of the equation, work on getting aligned in terms of that nurturing process. Once you've got the cash, realign. And, if you do that and repeat that and build that as a process in your business, which is, there's a guy called Dan Bowyer, and he says, ABR, always be raising. He just writes that everywhere, all over the internet, ABR and block capitals, always be raising. And what he doesn't mean is like, oh, always be sitting there on pitch calls and always be, joining accelerators and always be at a pitch competition and always be spending 90%. He doesn't mean that. He means always be up to date, always be accurate, always have good refreshed documents, always be in the mood to meet someone or network or take an opportunity, take a chance. But most importantly, have the system in your business ready. And I guess that's the only bit that we've not spoke about today, is really like, what is your fundraising engine in your business? And is it actually, filling its job? Can it run 12 months a year? Can you, get it to a fine art where you've always got fundraising running in the background, and your job is just to make sure that the document suite is refreshed, engaging, and when you get good leads across your desk, you decide, do I want to nurture this one or don't I? And that's always be raising. So yeah, that's probably my final part. What is your fundraising engine, and have you put a bit of time into building that?
Okay, and so how do we learn a bit more about that fundraising engine? Is that something that you can offer up some time for? Is that something that people can have a conversation with? Do you have any documents that people can learn a bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, we, about our business Inverse, and, it's so weird. We talk about, detach yourself from your business. I introduced myself as Jamie Inverse the other day, and I was like, oh gosh, it's happened to me as well. So, I've got a business, and we've basically tried to solve this for 3 years, and we do a pay-per-click, paid after the fact. So, no upfront fees, pay-per-click lead generation for angels, high net worths. And we run all of these email campaigns, and, we charge £2.50 per per warm lead, basically, which is someone who's read the deck and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we've built an engine. But again, there's nothing stopping you doing that yourself. And I'm a big believer in doing it yourself. And the first thing, people come to me and say, I want a pitch deck. I say, okay, can you do one yourself? Can we have a try of doing one yourself first before you spend any money on me? And it's the same thing with this, an engine for your fundraising campaign is a shareable suite of documents. Is it easy to share? Don't be asking for passwords and data rooms. Always have an up-to-date pitch deck for a specific audience, a specific target. Always have a up-to-date ask. Always have, a summary of what you've achieved last month and the month before that and the month before that. Always just have this in place. Always have lead generation in some way, shape, or form running. You shouldn't be waking up in the morning and thinking, okay, I need to fundraise today. I'm going to get some leads, right? Because that just comes across as like sloppy, impatient, etc. So, always have a lead engine built, whether it's, downloading a list of 1,000 investors, which you can get now. You can get this stuff now. It's all out there. Download a list, split it up into tens, and work your way through them. And before you've used that list, get a new one. Just always have that engine running. And if you've always got that engine running, you'll be successful. I don't think it needs the same level of CRM and etc. that a sales funnel will have, because ultimately a sales funnel's got a bit of a different nuance to it. You do need that sort of nurture period of large volumes of leads. With angel investors in particular, we only want a couple in that nurture phase. I look at it as prospect. Have they engaged? If they've engaged in the campaign in any way, shape, or form, we put them in like a focus list. Then we'll test that. Are they willing to chat or not? If they aren't, get rid of them, move on. Go to the next warm prospect and look at it, move on. We're not gonna sit around and wait. You've got to keep your fundraising moving, and that's just conversations. You'd be stunned how many investors there are out there. It's just quite amazing, how there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who are capable of investing, 20K tickets in your business. And with that in mind, don't just go after the guy from Y Combinator on LinkedIn, because guess what? He's not interested. He's got Adam Newman on speed dial if he wants to do some crazy startup, or Jack Dorsey. I was once told early in my career, my business career, that as an entrepreneur, you imagine yourself as the sun in the center of the solar system, and you accumulate gravity, and that's your value, that's your brand profile, that's your curb appeal. It's all of these things. And ultimately, initially, your sun's not a sun, it's a moon. You're going around someone else's star system and you're flying around in theirs until you can eventually get your own strength, and people can start to come around you a little bit. And I think we always are too quick to sort of, dismiss the fact that you need to be participating in other people's worlds. So, if I could say, again, it's a bit of a tangent, but if I was trying to raise money from Paul Graham or one of these guys from Y Combinator, I would do 4 weeks worth of commenting on their LinkedIn, thoughtful. I'd set a reminder up on my computer and notification every time they post a LinkedIn. I'm going to be the first 100 on there. That's my ambition. That's my target. If I do that for 4 weeks, they're going to see your name 100 times. They're going to see your name 20 times. And then when you send the connection request, they're like, oh, that person contributes positively to my network. I'll accept, because that's all anyone wants. They want positive contributors to the network. You then can drop a little message saying, hey, loved this post. I thought it was really thoughtful. I found a lot of synergies with my own work reading that. Thanks very much. And, comment again, do it for another 2 weeks, and then come in with an ask. You'll raise funding doing that, but no one wants to do that, So I think there's lots of different ways and lots of different strategies. But what we try and talk about here today is, ultimately building a process that you can run and manage yourself that's, cost efficient and is optimized to try and get those outputs you want, which is ultimately relationships, conversations, and investors.
Jamie, thank you so much. One of the phrases that comes to mind there is dig the well before you're thirsty.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah. 100%. And
Jamie, really appreciate it, mate.
No worries. Thanks, pal.
Go on, carry on.
No,
I was good. No. Look, I'm conscious of the time, and it's been actually fucking hell. It's been 90 minutes.
Yeah, it has.
Time's flown. I really appreciate it. Loads of value. Lots to cover here. I think this is going to be really valuable for the cohort. How do we contact you? How do we get hold of you? What's the best way of someone here today being able to reach out to you?
Just LinkedIn, Jamie Harford. I'm sure there'll be a link somewhere in and around wherever this content's being shown, or you can just search for me. Drop me a DM on there. It's I don't outsource anything. It's me. If I ignore you, then your approach isn't good, and let's work on that. And but no, generally just reach out, and I'd love to chat to anybody. I'm a chatter.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.